All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are just about 2 weeks until the beginning of the blessed month of Ramadan, the month of God's invitation to all believers for His mercy. And as we know, the month of Quran is called Rabi'ul Quran, the spring of the Quran. And according to ulama, it is also the beginning of the spiritual year. So one of the blessings of Sha'ban is said to be that spiritually, this is the end of our year. And all of the good things that we do during this month of Sha'ban, they are partly to end the year on a high note. Because whatever mistakes we may have made or shortcomings we may have made, we can kind of fix our accounts and ask forgiveness from Allah, do good deeds, and inshallah make up for any shortcomings that we might have had during the year in these last 2 weeks or so of the month of Sha'ban. And then the month of Ramadan is a new beginning. That is a time when we are going to be in the presence of Allah and able to receive the many spiritual and material benefits that we get in the month of Ramadan. So this session is intended to help all of us prepare for the month of Ramadan. And of course, that preparation can't just be done on the eve after the crescent is sighted, it has to be done in advance. And we have a number of our respected ulama who are with us, Shaykh Mahdi Muhammad Pur, Shaykh Rasul Naqavi, Shaykh Ammar Haidar. I believe Shaykh Muslim Mahdi is also going to be joining us, should be joining us in just a few moments. So we'll hear just a brief presentation from our ulama regarding how we can prepare in different aspects for the month of Ramadan. And after that, we'll have an opportunity for all of you who are attending to ask your questions. The focus is not only going to be on the legal aspect. We want to make sure that we know how to do our prayers and our fasting properly in this month. But it's not only the rules of Sawm or the rules of Salat. If you have questions about what to focus on and how to think about and how to prepare for the month, this is the time for us to discuss those topics. And inshallah, all of us together will be able to be ready and receptive for all that Islam and Allah offer us during the month of Ramadan. I'll begin just by reciting the verse of Quran that speaks of the obligation of fasting, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. It is in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 183. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who believe, fasting is an obligation for you. It is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you. Perhaps you may become pious. So fasting helps us achieve piety, and it helps us become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the aim and the struggle that inshallah we will try to embark on preparing today and then during the month of Ramadan. I see that we have been joined by Shaykh Muslim Mahdi, and I see that we're joined also by Sayyid Kashmiri. Welcome to our ulama. And I will begin by handing over the microphone to Shaykh Rasul Naqavi for brief introductory remarks about preparing for the month of Ramadan. Shaykh Rasul, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Sayyid Sulaiman. Thank you so much. And salaam alaikum to everyone. I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us that this session, inshallah, would prepare us to have a better Ramadan in the coming Ramadan, inshallah. I have 3 points here for us to, 3 advice to myself, of course, for having a better Ramadan. And that is actually a direct response to the question that the introduction that Maulana brought up at the beginning. The problem is, I think, that when we compare ourselves with the previous Ramadan, normally we do not feel any difference. So one Ramadan comes and goes, another Ramadan comes and goes, many Ramadan comes and goes, and we still don't feel that we are a better person. We still don't feel that we have been spiritually uplifted. We have been basically becoming a better version of ourselves. Why is that? Imam Ali alayhi salam warns us and he says, for many people, Ramadan is nothing. They don't get anything from it except being hungry and thirsty. كم من صائم ليس له من صيامه إلا الجوع والظمأ. There are many people who are fasting. إلا الجوع والظمأ. There are a lot of people who are fasting, right? ربما. But the problem is that because of the reasoning that I'm gonna mention, we don't feel that achievement. We don't feel that we have been spiritually lifted. So advice number 1, to feel that inshallah we will be a better person to after this Ramadan is this. Please, and I'm telling this to myself, let's have a specific crystal clear goal for Ramadan 2020. And by goal, I don't mean to intend of becoming a better person. I don't mean to intend that being a better servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, that's good. That's necessary. But that's not a plan. A plan, as I said, has to be specifically clear. So for example, let me give you a couple of examples, couple of vague examples and a couple of like specific examples. So when you say, I want to be a better person, that's vague. When you say, I want to elevate my spirituality, that's still vague. When you say, I want to satisfy Imam al-Zaman, still that's vague. How? What's your plan? Are you able to measure this? How are you going to evaluate this? I think that is important. So have a specific goal. Like, let me give you just a couple of a specific goal here. So goal number 1 would be stop. These are just examples, as I said. I mentioned a couple of them just as an example. I want to stop getting mad. I want to stop yelling if you're suffering from these bad habits. So in this blessed month of Ramadan, have a specific goal again. I want to finish recitation of 15 juz of Quran with translation. I mean 15 as an example. 30 juz is better, but whatever is possible, do it. So be specific again. I have a bad habit of being on social media a lot. This Ramadan, I want to go on a technology diet and be only a couple of minutes and mention that. I want to help this Ramadan every day one person, for example, right? I want to enjoy having one moment of huzur al-qalb, one moment of joy in one salat every day during the blessed months of Ramadan. I want to bring a smile on the face of my spouse like every day in the blessed months of Ramadan. What I'm trying to say is that the problem is that we do not have a specific goals for our Ramadan. That's why we don't feel that we have fulfilled, we have accomplished something. That's why I think every one of us, it's a responsibility on all of us to find one problem that I have as Rasul. What is the problem problem that I have as Rasul, and find that problem and work on it in the blessed months of Ramadan. So that's advice number one. I will be very quick for the 2 and 3. Advice number 2 is that that goal, that plan wouldn't be actualized if you are not able to evaluate yourself at the end of the day, meaning if you're not doing muhasaba. So everyday evaluation, everyday muhasaba at the end of each day of Ramadan, asking yourself, how was it today? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, um, if you are not evaluating yourself, you're not doing muhasaba every day, you're not one of us. So that's advice number 2, to help us to kind of actualize the goal that we have for our Ramadan. Advice number 3, again, these advice are for myself, honestly. I mean, I'm suffering from it, and I'm just sharing it out loud to inshallah help each other. This is our duty. We need to help each other to be a better version of ourselves again. So advice number 3 is that have a friend, have a buddy that you're close, that he or she is close to you, that you're able to share these goals with. The problem is that, like, for 1 week we are good because our willpower is high, and we are able to kind of do things. After 1 week, because of our willpower dries out and goes down, we are not able to follow up the goal that we had. So having a friend, having a body that is kind of pushing you, that is kind of encouraging you, that is kind of checking on you. Hey, you had this goal of having one salat, one moment of hudur al-qalb, one sajda with hudur al-qalb every day during the blessed months of Ramadan. Were you able to do it today? This is not Riyah. Many of us would think that this is Riyah. No, this is helping your friend to get to a spiritual goal that he or she has. So I would say, I think if we are able to have these 3, to implement these 3, to follow these 3 advice, inshallah, with the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us to become a better person, to have a better Ramadan, to feel that we have accomplished something at the end of this Ramadan, inshallah. That's all said now. Thank you. Said, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Sheikh Rasul, for very to the point and very practical advice. Inshallah, we'll hear more from you during the continuance of the program. So I'm going to turn now to Sheikh Mahdi Muhammad Pur, who will also share some brief guidance on how we can ready ourselves for the month of Ramadan. And after that, inshallah, we'll hear from Sheikh Ammar Haider, inshallah. Sheikh Mahdi, please.
Yes, thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة على رسول الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to thank everyone for participating and for the opportunity to share some reflections in preparation for the month of Ramadan. What I'm sharing here are not, of course, thoughts of mine. I'm drawing from Dua 44 of As-Sahifatu Sajjadiyah, attributed to Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. He has 2 du'as here that I think are worthy not only of our attention but of our study in preparation for the month of Ramadan, and also as we bid farewell. Dua 44 is his welcoming of the month, and he outlines a series of requests that he has from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, prefaced by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a number of blessings and opportunities that the month holds. What I really just want to do is outline them in an attempt to encourage myself to return to this dua and study it, reflect on it, think about what it means to me and how it applies to me, but also to encourage the larger community to think about it, because I think there are a lot of good strategies and a lot of really good questions that we can ask of how to advance our own practice, but also about our collective efforts. So the dua can be broken up into about 19 different sections. So I'll mention just some excerpts without necessarily identifying where they are in the dua. But in the first section, which is maybe about the first 4 or 5 lines or parts, the Imam sends praises. And in those praises, وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي جَعَلَ مِنْ تِلْكَ السُّبُلِ شَهْرَهُ شَهْرَ رَمَضَانَ. The Imam characterizes or describes this month with a few names. Number 1, all praise belongs to Allah who appointed among the roads, those roads towards Him, this month of Ramadan. So we know that month and the meanings that are generally related to it. It's also identified as Shahr al-Siyam. So the centrality that the act of Sawm, of fasting, of restraint, of presence plays, again, is a more familiar category. But the Imam then extends to say, wa Shahr al-Islam. This month is this month of Islam. It's always strikes me as odd that the Imam would speak about this month of Islam, because the whole year is month of Islam. But that every month is not month of Ramadan, and every month is not Shahr al-Siyam. Month of Islam here again is a return to those things that are found within this concept of taslim. So the 3 interpretations that are offered about what Shahr al-Islam means. Number 1, it's a month of true submission. What does it mean to be subservient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is to really clarify the relationship of being master and servant. So in this month, a believer must maximize his or her submission to Allah and also towards the laws that have been prescribed in the lifestyle of a Muslim. So that's 1, working on whether we are in submission. Number 2, Shahr al-Islam is also about the manifestation of Islam in a communal form. It speaks of the Muslim community, that this month of Ramadan is unique to the Muslim community, but it also exemplifies Islam in practice and can be visibly witnessed more so than other months. So Ramadan becomes an opportunity, but also a means to gauge the efficacy of Islam collectively in a locality, as I understand it. If really this is the month that we are increasing and intensifying our submission, our sense of servitude, and are trying to correct or again intensify those instructions that Islam gives of how we deal with one another, we should see Islam in practice at its best in this month, especially as it progresses. So Shahr al-Islam is about looking about what Islam means to us, but what it should mean in its, I don't want to call it ideal form, but in a working form, in a personal and communal sense. And another title that the Imam used was Shahr al-Tamhis. Tamhis, it's an opportunity for mu'mineen to be put to the test, for there to be a distinction between a practice of Islam that is pleasing to Allah and a practice of Islam that appeases the self and is really trying to fool the self into something that they may not necessarily deserve. Then the Imam asks for certain requests, and I'll just list them for these to also be on our radars. The first thing that the Imam asks for, وَأَلْهِمْنَا مَعْرِفَةَ فَضْلِهِ وَإِجْلَالَ حُرْمَتِهِ. He asks Allah, inspire us with the knowledge, the understanding, the appreciation of the excellence, of the importance of this month, and also the veneration of its inviolability. There's something really unique that happens. Let us not allow the month to pass without making great strides. But also, the Imam speaks about this month as an opportunity to restore relationships and to strengthen them. وَوَفِقْنَا فِيهِ لِأَن نَصِلَ أَرْحَامِنَا بِالْبِرِّ وَالصِّلَةِ. If Islam is meant to manifest, if it's meant to function, if it's meant to be efficient, then it requires strong relationships. And because of the challenges of life, we often find ourselves, because of our shortcomings or the shortcomings of others, in fractured relationships. This is a month where we tighten our bonds of kin, number 1, with family. How can we do that? With goodness, with devotion to them, and also with the extension of gift and giving. Not just the family, وَأَن نَتَعَاهَدَ جِيرَانَنَا بِالْإِفْضَالِ وَالْعَتِيَّةِ, to attend to our neighbors, again, with extension of love, of bestowal, and of giving. If we have not taken that opportunity to establish relations, and right now in the middle of this COVID-19 may not be ideal, but it still marks an opportunity. The month of Ramadan is welcome. We want to extend the spirit of that to those who we live in close proximity to. And also to go after the one that has left us. وَأَن نُرَاجِعَ مَنْ هَاجَرَنَا. There are a lot of people that have gone away from us, who they've turned their backs on us, or we may have turned our backs on them. This is a month for us to reorient ourselves and redirect ourselves towards each other. If the person wants nothing to do with you, you make a sincere effort to try and reconcile. وَأَن نُنصِفَ مَنْ ظَلَمَنَا, and for me to treat justly the one who has wronged me. This is really where I think a person has to dig deep. In the dua, in the salat, in the munajat, in the siyam, all of these things require of us after we are, or while we are performing them, to do something great. And the doing of something great for us is really not the restraint of food or drink anymore. We've already achieved those abilities. But the ability to turn to someone who has wronged us, to someone who treated us unjustly, who was rude to us, who was dismissive of us, to try and correct that relationship for the larger good of the Muslim community, that's much more difficult. And it requires us to take seriously what we are saying and what we are receiving in the month. And finally, it's an opportunity in this same section for us to think about how we are to be in relationship with each other at other levels in society. One of the things that the Imam asks, وَأَن نُخَلِّصَ أَمْوَالَنَا مِنَ التَّبِعَاتِ وَأَن نُطَهِّرَهَا بِإِخْرَاجِ الزَّكَوَاتِ. Oh Allah, I ask you to rid our possessions from the claims that may exist. The Quran has a whole economic and financial infrastructure about how wealth is to be distributed, dues that are meant to be paid, and support that is meant to be lent. It's possible that amongst our possessions are things that belong to other people, and perhaps those who are, and most probably those who are less fortunate than us. Oh Allah, allow us to come to the realization to give to the person who deserves, but to whom has that authority and has that possession, that which belongs to them, of our possessions, of our wealth. And also to purify our earnings and to purify our collections with the payment and the paying of the alms and the zakat, the sadaqat. This is also an important point of, again, establishing those strong relationships that allows the Muslim community to function at its highest and fullest potential. So my suggestion, again, to myself and admonition to myself and as an extension to all of my brothers and sisters, let us take seriously this month insofar as we focus not just on some of the rituals that we perform, which are of course important, and the Imam speaks of them, but also the implications that it has on the relationships that we are meant to enjoy, and reflect on the state of our relationships right now. What can we do to attend to them? I think this dua really has a lot of great answers, and I encourage myself and all of you to study it, inshallah, in the coming days and in the month itself. I pray that this month is a month full of betterment, of development, of gaining proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and each other. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah, Shaykh Mahdi. Sayyid Kashmiri had to leave. He had another meeting, so he joined us briefly. And if he's able to join us again, we'll hear from him. If not, then inshallah, in a future opportunity. But I would like to now invite Sheikh Ammar to give us a little bit of guidance. We've talked from the enlightening words of Sheikh Rasul and Sheikh Mahdi about the spiritual preparation, but a big part of taking advantage of the month is also knowing how to do our worship properly. And so Sheikh Mahdi and inshallah Sheikh Muslim will enlighten us on these aspects as well. Sheikh Ammar, I'd like to hand the mic over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you very much, Sayyid Sulaiman, for inviting me. It's a very good time to discuss few things before Ramadan as a preparation. And inshallah, in few minutes, I'll try. If you would tell me, please, how much time I'll have for, so that I can make a goal.
Sure. Before you begin your remarks, actually, If I can also just request those of you who are attending in the Zoom room, if you have questions that you would like to ask, feel free to use the chat window and you can put your questions in writing. Inshallah, depending on how much time we have, there might be an opportunity to ask the questions orally as well. But feel free to write your questions in the chat window as they come to your mind. Sheikh Amar, if you can maybe take about 5 minutes or so, a little bit less or a little bit more than that to share your guidance.
5 minutes, you said, or something?
Yeah, preferably, but
Okay.
it's flexible. So
Okay,
however much
inshallah,
time you
10 to
need
5.
for.
Inshallah, 5 to 10 minutes. I'll try to finish my words. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rabbis Samawati wal Ardeen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Sayyidina Mawlana bil Qasim Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin wa at-tahirin al-ma'sumin. Siyama Mawlana baqiyatullahi fil Ardeen. Well, in few minutes, inshallah, in very short, the points I would like to discuss here is what is the base and what is the value of fasting. And inshallah, I'll go to discuss about a little bit about where we can break our fast and what is the limits for breaking the fast, which is called qasr or shikaste. And I start with few hadiths from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam and Imam Jafar Sadiq salamullah alayhi. The first hadith discussed here from Amir al-Mu'mineen, where he says, Sawmun nafs an ladhat dunya anfa'u siyam. So what is the goal for Sawm and the fasting is, it's not about just being hungry or thirsty. No, there's a goal in this month, as that goal is preparation for saying goodbye to the worldly desires and from saying goodbye to the sin, the world of sin, and Salik, the wayfarer, will move forward after this Ramadan. Inshallah, we all move forward toward the world of ta'at of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ta'at means following the path of Quran, following the values of Quran, Rasulullah, and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu salam. So in the teachings of regarding the month of Ramadan and the benefits of Sawm, fasting, Imam Ali alayhi salatu salam says, Sawmun nafs an ladhat dunya anfa'u siyam. If someone do fasting and prevent himself from the worldly desires, this is the most beneficial fastings. That means fasting is not all about not eating and not drinking, whether it is very good when we don't eat, so it's going to make our physical body clean. But beside that, if you have intention of cleaning nafs, that would be much better, and that is a main goal according to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Amir al-Mu'mineen has another beautiful saying where he says, As-siyam ijtanabul maharim. Siyam, the fasting means, and the 30 days fasting at least, or what is a mustahab, fasting in the year means every month, at least 3 days is highly recommended. So overall, you're going to fast in 12 months, every month 3 times, 36 more days, which is highly recommended. And if someone can fast more and more, that would be great. So siyam ijtanabul maharim, basically siyam means is staying away from everything which is haram from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kama yamtani'u ar-rajul min at-ta'ami wa sharab. As you control yourself from prevent yourself from eating and drinking, you have to prevent yourself from all kind of haram activities. Well, this is very vast field. Haram, usually we do, people usually do haram with the hand, with legs, with ear, when we listen, wrong things when we see, wrong things when we, with the tongue, when we speak, wrong thing. There's a beautiful hadith from Imam Sajjad salamullah alayhi where he says, every day his tongue asks from other organs of the body, how are you going to be today? So every organ replies to the tongue saying, if you let us, we would be good. Otherwise, we're all going to be in hell because of you. So all organs of the body talk to the tongue, basically. So tongue is one of the main source for committing sin. So ijtinab, siyam, ijtinabul maharim, preventing ourselves from all kind of haram, kama yamtani'u rajul, as we prevent ourselves from eating food and drinking water. This is very important. Another point we have to pay a lot of attention. There's another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen where it says, Sawmul qalb خير من صيام اللسان. Well, it does not mean if we are going to fast by our heart, that means it is enough and now we don't have to have fast from food. No, we have to fast from food and from drinking and from all those things which breaks void, which makes void your sawm. But beside that, sawmul qalb khayrun min siyamil lisan. Fasting from the bottom of your heart, from the all of your heart, it is better than min siyamil lisan, fasting from your tongue. And then sawmul lisan, fasting of tongue, is much better. Khayrun min siyamil batan, is better than fasting from food and drinking. So there's a levels of those who want to go through the path of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and tariq al-suluk, they have to pay attention to those levels. Sawmul batan is the lowest level of fasting, just preventing ourselves from drinking and eating. And then sawmul lisan and the fasting from tongue, it is more important than siyamul batan. And sawmul qalb, which is preventing our heart from all kind of temptations which takes us towards haram, it is much higher and much more important. So basically sawmul batan is a way towards sawmul lisan, fasting of tongue, and that fasting is a path towards the higher standard of spirituality, or you can say kamal, which is a sawmul qalb. Imam Sadiq Salamullah says, "Ida sumta faliyasum." If you want to fast, then try to get or be fasting or try to get fasting or try to get fast. إذا صمت فليصم سمعك وبصرك وشعرك وجلدك. If you want to fast, try to do fast with your ears, with your eyes, with your even though hairs of your body, and even though with your skin. So prevent your entire existence from doing haram. So this is the muqaddama or preface for entering inshallah in the month of Ramadan. One of the most important thing is recommended from Allama Tabatabai is someone asked from Allama Tabatabai, a student, a Hausa student asked, he asked from Allama Tabatabai, Hajaga, can I sleep? Can I take a nap in my in Layal al-Qadr, in the Qadr nights? Ayatollah Allama Tabatabai replied to him saying that, of course, there's not haram, you can sleep in Laylat al-Qadr. But as per I remember in my entire life since the day I become baligh and I become responsible of myself, as I remember in my entire life, I've never slept in any night of Ramadan. So that's how ulama and those who are very watching themselves very carefully and they're curious to attain something, to attain a grade, a level. So they use their time, especially in the month of Ramadan. And this is a very important thing. As I promised, inshallah, I'm going to discuss in a few minutes ahkam of Salat Musafir. You have to remember, if you are traveling in the month of Ramadan, so if you want to travel and you want to keep your fast, number one, travel after noon, after Dhuhr. So if you travel after Dhuhr, and let's say an example, just an example. Let's say 12 o'clock is Dhuhr. So if you want to keep today's fast, you do not want to miss your fast, so travel after 12 o'clock. So when you travel after 12, after Dhuhr, then you can keep your fast, number one. Number two, where you are going to, and if you are traveling, let's say sometime happens, people say tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, I have to leave the city. I have to travel somewhere. So when you're about to leave 10 o'clock and you have a niyat of that, so sometime by mistake, people wake up early morning and they say, okay, tomorrow, today I'm going to travel. So let me have my breakfast. People go and eat their breakfast. This is haram. We cannot do that. And in the month of Ramadan, you have to have intention of fasting, and fasting has to be established. So when you wake up early morning, whether you have a niyat for traveling before noon or afternoon, whatever it is, you have to start fasting. When you start fasting, after that, when you travel and after leaving the Hadd Tarakhus means it's around your city, the place where when you reach there, from there you can break your fast if you move after that point. And that point is, according to people who work with the kilometers, it's like 45 And there's a difference of opinion among Maraji. Some Maraji says 43, 44, 40, but I guess ihtiyat is 45 kilometers. So when you arrive to the 45 kilometers from after this point or after this point, you can break your fast if your travel is going to be your back and forth 45 kilometers. So Hadd Tarakhus means when you reach to that point, from there you cannot see the tree and wall of your city. And if someone is giving adhan without any device, you cannot hear his adhan, the adhan's voice, not with the mic or microphone. No, the regular voice, the human voice. So when you leave your city and you reach to the place, doesn't matter from north, south, east, west. When you reach to the place, from that place you cannot see your city, city's home, city's walls, city's tree, and from there you cannot listen any adhan's voice. If someone is giving adhan in your city, at the border of your city, you cannot listen that. So that is your Hadd Tarakhus. Now the Hadd Tarakhus means the border where we're going to be free. If you travel after this point, if your travel is 44, 45 kilometers, which is going to be, I guess, 27 miles or 28 miles, something like that. When you arrive to that point, if your niyat is, I'm going to travel for 45 kilometers, right? Then you can break your fast after there. So this is two very important points. First of all, at the early morning, and sometime the best thing is, my brothers and sisters, early morning when you wake up, or not before early morning, before the month of Ramadan, you better do niyat for whole Ramadan. And you say, I am going to fast for entire month of Ramadan. This is the best for you. This is the best for you. And if you have a niyat for whole month, and it's a month of Ramadan, let's say first or third or 10th day, and by mistake you wake up and you ate some breakfast, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I was fasting. So just quit right from there, and you are good because you had a niyat for fasting. So because your fasting was according to your intention, your fasting was from the beginning point of the day, the Fajr. So you have fasted. You started your fasting from that time, and now you by mistake you had your breakfast. But if you don't have intention of tomorrow, I'll decide tomorrow morning I'm going to fast or not, and if you ate something by mistake, then you can then you cannot continue that day, because your intention was not, you were not ready for the fasting. So these are the subtleties, and we have to pay attention to these things. So first of all, we all have to do a niyat. Tomorrow we are going to fast, even you're traveling or not. If you're traveling, when you start your travel, when you reach to the Hadd Tarakhus, the level of border, the border of the city, from where your travel is going to be 45 kilometers or 44 kilometers. After that point, if back and forth your travel is 44, 45 kilometers, then you can break your fast. Or if you can make it, if you come back to your city, let's say you pass the Hadd Tarakhus, and you went 5-10 kilometers further ahead, and then you decide come back to the city. So if you can come back to the city, if you enter in your city before noon, your fast is correct if you did not break your fast. This is another very good point. Otherwise, if you're reaching your city back after noon, after the zawal shams means when the midday happens. If you're arriving after that, your salat is void, and then you have to do qada some other time. These are the very basic things, inshallah. And if you have more questions regarding this, I'll be in your service. And Sayyid Sulaiman and other shuyukh are there. Sayyid Sheikh Muslim, Sheikh Kulahi, and Sheikh Rasul are there. So inshallah, we all be in your service. If you have questions, inshallah, we will talk to. Sorry, took a little longer than Sayyid, but I think it was a good discussion. I think Sayyid, you're muted. I cannot hear you.
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, those are very important points.
You're most welcome.
And I think the most important one, or one of the important points, was that when you are traveling, you do need to, as Sheikh Ammar said, begin with the intention of fasting. And then if maybe you change your mind, maybe the weather isn't good or the car breaks down and you don't travel, you need to continue the fast. And as Sheikh reminded us, if you do travel, when you reach Hadd Tarakhus, you can break your fast. Thank you, Sheikh Ammar. We'll now turn to Sheikh Muslim. You have same amount of time, so within about 5 minutes, but if you'd like to take a few minutes more, that's up to you. And just a reminder to participants, if you do have questions that you would like to put in the chat window, then please, you can use this opportunity to submit your questions and get them to the top of the line. Sheikh Muslim Mahdi, the floor is yours, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين. Respected scholars and dear community fellows, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, thank you for all of you for giving me this opportunity to be in your service at this time as we are proceeding towards the holy month of Ramadan. And when I was thinking about presenting something about the holy month of Ramadan, I see, mashallah, the scholars before me, they have covered most of the important topics related to the fasting, especially the spiritual dimensions. Therefore, I would like to take a few minutes and inshallah I will advise all of you, if you have your own personal question, bring those up, because as we have spoken and heard about the spiritual dimension, which is indeed very important, as the scholars have mentioned, that Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, Aimma alayhi salam, they are emphasizing upon that the greater degree of fast is fast of your soul and spirit, where you excel that. But at the same time, we have to be cognizant and mindful that fiqh dimension is equally important, because if we were to take the benefits of spiritual dimension, the prerequisite is that our fast is in order in jurisprudential realm as well. Therefore, I think I will go very briefly through the list, and I can see a couple questions are already there, so I will try to include those as well in my presentation. So a very common topic, and indeed it has to be memorized by our children. It's good to memorize a short list of the things which may invalidate our fast. And hopefully all of us, we know them, but it's not a bad idea to go through the list very quickly. Therefore, I will read some of those. And as a note, that your marja might have different, but ruling in terms of, for instance, some maraja, they would say that when you take your head, completely submerge that in the water, it may invalidate your fast. So you need to check with your marja, but this is a common list which is agreed upon by majority, if not all of the maraja. For instance, the first two mubtalat in Arabic, the things which invalidate the fast. The first thing is indeed drinking and then eating. So we have to stay away from any kind of food and drink throughout the duration of the fasting. So that includes any kind of, a little bit of food as well, which goes through our throat into our body, that invalidate our fast. But as a very important point to remember, that if it happens by mistake, so it's not deliberate action to eat or drink. Someone just woke up, it's the first or second of Ramadan and is not used to, went for a coffee and had the coffee, and then later realized that, oh, I have invalidated my fast, and it was not a deliberate effort, then hani allahu. So just, you had a very good cup of coffee, enjoy it, and your fast is in order. You don't need to make up of that fast, because it was just by a mistake. So eating and drinking deliberately at any point of the time during the fasting, and especially we need to be very cautious and careful. Sometimes it's in the mind of the people, especially living in a diverse society, when we see the Muslims and our brothers and sisters from other schools of thought in Islam, they break their fast right at the sunset, and majority of Shia fuqaha, they would tell that complete it until the night. So be cautious and mindful when you are breaking your fast, that you know the ruling of your marja, and your breaking the fast does not occur before its time of the completion. And also, as the side note, that according to our school of thought and school of fiqh, in fact, jurisprudence, uh, fasting does not become invalidate or makruh if we do not break that. So once the time comes in, our fast is already completed, even we don't eat or drink for X number of hours. So these are two major things. And then another major thing is related to seminal discharge, and also the sexual relationship, the relationship of husband and wife, if an intercourse is taking place that invalidates the fast. It's not permissible to perform that during while fasting. And very similarly, any deliberate action which causes seminal discharge invalidate the fast. And inshallah later, I think other ulama, they will explain the penalty and kafara for deliberately invalidating the fast. So the sexual intercourse and masturbation, it invalidates the fasting. However, if a seminal discharge happens during the sleep and involuntarily, that does not break the fast and does not invalidate the fast. There is no penalty, and fast stays in order. In fact, the ghusl janaba would become mandatory on that person. So another thing which is also very important, especially I always tell in this day and age when we are living the age of digital world and multimedia and WhatsApp and social media. So a lot of ahadith are circulated, and sometimes people by mistake or sometimes out of their ignorance, they attribute those ahadith to the Prophet and sometimes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not permissible, and according to precaution, mandatory precaution, and according to the ruling of some of the fuqaha, it invalidates your fast if you deliberately refer to a saying and say that this is said by the Prophet, or for instance, fifth Imam said this. In fact, he did not, and you know that. So that invalidates your fast. So ascribing a lie to Imam Ma'soom or to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invalidates your fast. Another ruling is that when you deliberately swallow the dust, so it's not a food or drink, but it's a thick dust, a thick smoke. So if it goes through your throat, and then again, the deliberation is involved as well. But if out of your control, if something comes and goes through your throat, it's okay. But if someone is deliberately going through the thick dust and swallowing that invalidates the fasting, especially based on obligatory precaution as per many mujtahideen. And the other one is, in fact, the number 6, that a person stays in the state of impurity until the time of adhan, or when the time of fast starts. So a person was in the state of impurity during the night and deliberately and on purpose does not do ghusl, no matter it is ghusl related to the sisters or the brothers. So deliberately this person delays taking the bath or ghusl, and the time of fasting comes in, that invalidates the fast as well. And there is, if it is deliberate, it does involve the penalty and kafara as well. So, and the last one which I would like to mention is when someone vomits or throws up intentionally. That also does invalidate, but if it is again unintentionally, it does not. If it is involuntarily, if someone throws up, the fast is in order. The person can just gargle and clean the mouth and can continue with the fasting. As I said, a couple of questions I could see regarding the vaccine, and sometimes it's a very common question that how, if I can have a medicinal injection or inhaler for asthma. All these things are okay to have. They do not invalidate your fast. Let's say a vaccine shot or a medicinal injection or using inhaler for the patients of asthma, they would not invalidate your fast. Some fuqaha, they say that it is makruh, but if it is a necessity, then you may proceed with that. Some fuqaha, they have a difference of opinion in terms of injection, that you cannot have any kind of injection which gives you vitamins or energy boost type of injection you cannot have, but others, they permit that kind of injections as well. But very similarly, putting eye drops in your eyes, or if there is a medicine that needs to be taken through your nostrils, as long as it's not reaching to your throat, that is fine as well. So these, I think these were some important things which I wanted to bring up. And if you have questions, and other scholars, if they feel that if I have said something which needs to be corrected, please go ahead, because it's a fiqh ruling and that needs to be very clear for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikh Mahdi, for a very brief and useful introduction to the rules of the things which break our fast. And that's a very beautiful combination. We have the legal requirements to have a valid fast and the spiritual requirements to have a fast that brings our soul to a higher place. Sheikh Mahdi, you made a very important point, Sheikh Muslim Mahdi, which is that the vaccine and any other medical injections do not invalidate the fast. So if you're scheduled to get the vaccine in the month of Ramadan, you can go ahead and fast and receive the vaccine as well. And that's not going to invalidate your fast. Thank you to all of our ulama for...
I just want to add one more point
Please.
regarding the COVID vaccine that Sheikh Muslim and you mentioned. I also have been asked what would have happened if you know by getting vaccine, because of the after effects, you would not be able to fast. So you're fine, you're able to fast right now. But what about if you kind of know if you get the vaccine because you will get sick, that in the end, and then you wouldn't be able to fast. I think it would be a good idea to address this question as well. And I think the answer is, according to at least a class historian, I would say this is the common mashhur idea among our maraja, that even though if you know that you're gonna have problem being able to fast after getting the vaccine, even if you know it, that is still okay to have the vaccine. It would be very similar to when you travel and you're only because of escaping fasting, although that would be makruh, but it is still permissible. So getting vaccine is okay, even if you know after getting vaccine you wouldn't be able to fast for 1 day or 2 because of the side effects.
Thank you. So we have, I think, a number of questions, and inshallah we'll get to those in time. I will just briefly say a little bit about the start and the end of the fast, and that is one of the questions that we have received as well. But in the interest of time, I'll keep it very brief and just mention a few of the main points. So Islamically, we start the fast not from daybreak, which is sunrise, but from Fajr time. And we end the fast at nightfall. Fajr time is approximately an hour and a half before sunrise, but it's not precisely an hour and a half. So don't just go to a newspaper or website, find out when sunrise is, and then subtract an hour and a half from it. You can use a reliable calculation of Fajr, and you can eat and drink until you have assurance that Fajr time has begun. So some people ask the question, Do we have to stop eating before Fajr time? Or is there an imsak time separate from Fajr time? In Islamic law, there is only Fajr time, when the adhan of Fajr begins. But it's not a bad idea, because all of these calculations are based on models and approximations. It's not a bad idea to stop eating a couple minutes before that Fajr time, 5 minutes, if you want 10 minutes before that. You can use that time to brush your teeth, to renew your wudu, to get ready for salat, to read Quran, and then pray Fajr after the time for Fajr begins. But if you don't want to maintain that precaution, you can eat your morning meal up until Fajr time. And when Fajr time begins, even if you have a bite in your mouth, you have to throw it out. If you have a glass of water to your mouth at adhan time, you can't drink that water, and you start the fast from that moment. Night is when the sun falls below the western horizon. But as a precaution, some scholars say it's a necessary precaution, some scholars say it's a recommended precaution, we wait until the eastern horizon goes dark. And that is usually about 15 minutes or so after sunset time that you'll find on like a weather application or a news website. That's when you can open the fast. And when it comes to, of course, the beginning and the end of the month, there are different fatwas and there's always a controversy, but I can give you the good news that all things equal, and if everything goes well this month, hopefully we should not have too much controversy about the beginning and the end of the month of Ramadan. A number of the different rulings will coincide in this month. Some months there is a difference of opinion, and that's not a big deal. That's because the process of scholarship is alive and everybody is to follow their conscience. That process is what keeps our religious community thriving and dynamic. So we have a number of questions that have come in. The first question does not really pertain directly to the month of Ramadan, but very briefly, Sheikh Mahdi, if you can address it. What is the epitome of a man? We have a hadith, the famous hadith between the Prophet and Lady Fatima salamullahi alayha, that it is ideal for a woman not to be seen by a non-mahram nor to see a non-mahram. So how would we understand that hadith, and what is the epitome for a man? Again, this is not related to fasting, but because the question has come, if you can just briefly say some words about it.
Sure. Yeah, this is a often quoted hadith that has come, and I'll try to add some points to perhaps nuance the meaning or its potential application for us. So I think at the foundational, if we look, the epitome of man and woman is the practice of taqwa. Inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum. That is the gold standard. Now, in what it means to manifest taqwa, and taqwa has an element of protection, of security, there's almost a response and a reaction to how society and social norms begin to shift that the function, the role, the presentation of man and of woman within society in ways that tries to protect a caricature of what it means to live as a woman of faith or a man of faith. So in representing that, if we look to how women were seen, were presented, and were valued in early Islamic, pre-Islamic times, we very clearly see these the themes of objectification, of oppression, of sexualization, of exploitation of women, that the woman was not seen as being of value unless it served some sort of some role in pleasing the lower desires or the physical desires of a man. So one of the ways where women could express that and gain that sense of social value and social acceptance was to buy in and to play ball in those terms, and to beautify themselves through ornaments and other things. And the institution of hijab and the practice of hijab, all of these are responses to the social degradation of the value and worth of women and man too in its own way. So this riwayah, this hadith kind of is in response to what it means for a woman to practice taqwa in a society, in a place where there's a very clear agenda in trying to continue to devalue the place of women within society, and for them to feel like that themselves. Now, for a man, there are also these exaggerations of what it means to be manly. So we have in riwayat, again, in the application of taqwa, qualities like being brave, of manifesting, having that sense of ghira, and a sensitivity and protection over one's maharim. But there's also other things that try to counterbalance some of the exaggerations that happen, of being rough, of being rigid, of being vile. So we have riwayat or ahadith from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that said, خير الرجال من أمتي الذين لا يتطاولون على أهلهم ويحنون عليهم ولا يظلمونهم. So that among the best men of my ummah are those who are not strict or difficult with their families. They are kind to them, they extend that love, and they do not oppress them. Again, the expression of love and affection speaks about التودد نصف العقل. For a person to express their love and their kindness is half of one person's intellect. All of these accounts that speak about the high qualities of man and woman can be seen in response to a societal kind of decay or change of what it means to live a balanced lifestyle in accordance to the Islamic worldview. So what's to say? What that means is that the epitome of man and woman in that case is not something to be found in one idea or one principle. It's an amalgamation of those things. But I think what helps us contextualize and better understand what it means to be the best of men and the best of women in one's living circumstances, to look at how society has destroyed the balance of what it means to be a man of value and a woman of value. And riwayat help us, understand what those things are and how to respond to them. So in our contemporary times, we have these shifts too of who is a man of value, who is a woman of value. We of course have themes that transcend time. Objectification of women still is very much there. Within men, that's also extended because of the balancing of society, where we have equality, and that equality extends unfortunately to objectification. But we also have value is determined in a person's professional status and their education. And those things are not inherently problematic in Islam, just as to be seen or to see a non-mahram is not inherently problematic. That's abundantly clear. The examples of those, exemplary women that the Quran gives, like وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ نُوحٍ وَامْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ, and also Maryam alayhi salam. These are not people who were just, in places where they were not seen or did not see people. They were in the middle of society. Lady Khadija, the mother of Lady Fatima, salamullah alayha, Lady Zainab, all of these people are in society and obviously are being seen and see. The point, though, is that they're responding to a distorted way of looking at what it means to be valued in the eyes of society, and they're trying to correct that. So I think reading the tradition in that lens can really help shed some clarity on what it means to be the epitome of man. It responds to the context that people are in, and of course those basic characteristics are found that that are timeless.
Thank you. It's a very complex topic, and alhamdulillah, since the question was there, I didn't want to leave it unaddressed. Thank you, Sheikh Mahdi, for shedding light on both the timeless and the particular aspects. Brother Latif Rashid, you have your hand up. Can you very briefly unmute yourself and ask your question?
No, I that was an accident. I apologize.
Not at all. Glad to hear your voice.
I'm
Now, I
listening,
guess we'll come
but
to.
yeah, that was my automatic body movement or something. But thank you, brother.
Not at all. And I think we'll then move to the other questions. So we have one question. Scholars, please step forward and address the question. We'll try to do this rapid fire so we can get to as many questions as possible. My son swims competitively twice a week. Although he is not baligh, will swimming invalidate his fast? Any of the scholars would like to address that question? Please go ahead.
I think we didn't hear from Sayyid Kashmiri yet.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid Kashmiri. I didn't know that you are back. Thank you, and apologies that you had to leave for, I know, another important meeting.
Just it was conflict of meetings these days. Anyway,
so
can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. The question was that my son swims competitively. The son is not baligh, but does swimming invalidate the fast? But don't feel limited to the question. So if you'd like to say
yeah, thank you so much. With the permission from my fellow scholars, if he on taqleed and follows Sayyid Sistani, Sistani has no issue even if he is baligh. So he doesn't consider swimming as a nullifier, fast nullifier.
And also one thing, swimming, if you are so competitive and you are keeping your head up and you're not submersing your head in the water, I believe none of the fuqaha will have any problem for swimming.
Yeah, so thank you, Sayyid Kashmiri and Sheikh Muslim. The issue with swimming often is fatigue and thirst and hunger that comes after it. But in terms of the rule itself, you've heard the explanation from the ulama. Thank you. The other question that I see is, what does the Quran say with regard to the time permission for eating and drinking before starting the fast? Does the reference to light across the horizon have anything to do with the rules recommended versus required? That pertains to the brief explanation I gave. So with the permission of the ulama, I'll begin the answer. If you'd like to add anything, please do. The recommendation to stop eating a little bit before the light spreads horizontally across the horizon is as a matter of precaution. You don't actually have a requirement. It's not mustahab to stop earlier, but it's a good thing to be careful. You don't want to find out later that your clock was off and you actually were eating after the time had begun. So the requirement is when light spreads horizontally across the dark horizon in the eastern sky. That's what's called al-Fajr al-Sadiq. And that's about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half before sunrise, depending on where you are in the world. Now, for most of us, though, living in urban environments, you can't really look in the horizon. There's too much pollution, dust pollution, air pollution, trees, buildings. You can't really look at the horizon. You need to use a chart. So if you give a few extra minutes as a precaution, that's just to ensure that you fulfilled your obligation. Any ulama would like to add anything to that?
Ahsan, Sheikh Sayyid. Ahsan.
Okay. So we have one question from a person who says that they have migraines. The question is, I have chronic migraines almost every time I try to fast. I become incapable to keep my fast. I vomit after I break my fast. Does having such chronic migraines count as an illness? Do I have to do qada, or do I have to make up that fast? What is the rule in this regard? Would any of the ulama like to address that question?
Allow me to answer this question. I seen istifta from Sayyid Sistani about this. If migraine has different levels, if there's such example that really brings harm and one cannot continue his or her fasting, it's okay to break the fast and take some medicine, but you have to continue your imsak, what's called Sayyidina, to abstain from eating and drinking as much as you can. Then you have to make it up. There is no kafar.
Thank you. Santum. So I think we've come to most of the questions that I can see. There is an unrelated question that somebody has asked. Are we allowed to keep a cat as a pet? Would any of the ulama like to address that question briefly? It's not related to fasting, but it
ask
does.
some alim who has pet at home.
Any of the ulama? The short answer is that keeping a cat is not a problem. A cat is not najis, but the cat hair, most fuqaha say that that causes a problem. If you want to pray, you have to remove the cat hair from your person and from your clothing. Sayyid Sistani says that if there's a small amount of hair, 1 or 2 hairs, then it is not a problem, but you can't be, covered in cat hair if you want to pray. So that was the question on pets. Now, we have a question. What is the travel condition for people driving to Idara Jafariya for Maghrib from Virginia? Anybody would like to address that question?
Sayyidina, go ahead. You explain.
Sure. So the requirement here is that the faqih is not going to tell you what is the requirement in terms of Virginia or Idara Jafariya. The point is that you count the standard given by Sheikh Ammar, which is 44 kilometers, 27 miles round trip. You start counting that from whatever point you would be considered a traveler. So it's not your state or your municipality or your postal district or your park district or your school district, it's or your congressional district. Whatever point common custom considers you to be in town versus a traveler, that's when you'll start. And so if you live in one of the near suburbs in Virginia or DC or Maryland, where when you leave your town to get to Idara Jafariya or any other center, it is less than 27 miles round trip. It might be 30 miles from your home, it might be 50 miles from your home. But if it's less than a 27-mile round trip from the edge of your city, you are not considered to be a traveler. Right.
And just to add,
sure.
I shared a link from our website. There's a document, including Arabic as well. There's a document in English. It talks about details of the rules of traveling, and those who really work as a travel, they work during the travel. So the travel is part of their daily movement. Kathir Safar called. There are so many details there, and also definitions. Who is the traveler, and from where you can count? Because still, as Sayyid Maulana Sayyid Sulaiman explained, you need to know your border. So the city limit, where is it? From where you have to start? There's some explanation there can help you to make the right decision. Where is your city limit, and from where you start your calculation, and to recognize your status. Are you Kathir Safar or not? Maybe someone who lives in such great or big or multiple multipolitan areas like DMV, maybe all of us be considered Kathir Safar somehow. So please take a few minutes from your time and read this document. This is very important.
Thank you, Sid Kashmiri. And I'm also going to share that link on the YouTube for those who are following along on YouTube. You'll have access to the link from Imam in the chat window.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question that we have is, when should we break our mustahab fast? Can we break it anytime after Zawal and get the full reward without any justification? So I think some people are asking if there are any shortcuts. We haven't heard from some of our ulama for a while, so if you'd like to address that question, please go ahead. I think Sheikh Muslim has to leave. Thank you, Sheikh Muslim, if you are still in the room, for joining us and helping us gain insight about the month of Ramadan and sharing your knowledge. We will be wrapping up soon.
With farewell with all the scholars and the brothers and sisters in the community. And thank you for organizing this wonderful program and the forum. And inshallah, hopefully you will have more of this kind. Fi amanillah.
Allahumma ameen. Thank you. So the question was about breaking a recommended fast. Sheikh Rasul, would you like to address that?
Yeah, if I got the question right, it was about the time that you're able to break your fast. There is no difference between the time that if you're doing a recommended fasting or if it's wajib, the time of start and end of fasting doesn't differ. It would be like the difference between Salat al-Mustahab, which you do 2 rak'ah, and Salat like morning prayer. So there, you can't say because it is Mustahab, I'm not gonna recite let's say Surah Al-Hamd. I think there is a confusion regarding if someone invites you to eat something, which there is a hadith which encourages you to respond to the invitation of a mu'min. So in that case, yes, you're able to break your fast. You had intended to fast the entire day, but a faithful mu'min comes to you and says, I want to invite you for dinner. Well, or sorry, for lunch. Dinner would be too late. For lunch. Yes, you are able to accept the invitation, and actually it is recommended to accept the invitation of a mu'min. Respecting a mu'min, the hurma of a mu'min is according to some ahadith, is a'dam min al-Kaaba, is greater than the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you accept the invitation and you break your fast, and you will have the thawab of fasting as well.
Thank you, Sheikh. Sheikh Ammar, if you're still with us, I'd like to direct the next question to you.
Bismillah, Sayyid. Assalamu alaikum. Again, I'm with you.
Alaikum assalam.
You can hear.
Sure, yes. The question is for people who had COVID and they've recovered, but they still have longer symptoms of fatigue and maybe other after effects of COVID. What is the rule for them to fast or not?
Basically here, what ayah of Quran says, 2 things if you have, like if you're on travel, suffer, and if you are marid. So we have to find out that if the fatigue or the sickness is a mistaq or it's the perfect example or exact example of marid, then you cannot fast. Basically, if you're fasting while you're being sick then your fasting is void, because Quran says when you are on travel and when you are sick or you're ill. So if you feel like you're sick and you have to take medication, and especially if doctor says you cannot fast and you have to take medication, so you're in this case you don't fast, because while you consider yourself as sick or as ill, you cannot fast. But if it's just tiredness and fatigue, it's building and you can bear it, there's no problem, you don't have to take any medicine for it, and you can tolerate it very easily, then you have to fast, because you're going to be subject of a person who is going to fast. But if there's any kind of sickness, a doctor says, like lots of people say, I feel I'm good, but doctor medicine. And every 8 hours, you have to have medicine. Of course, you have to take medicine because you are sick. So,
Unfortunately, Sheikh, it looks like we lost connection with you.
sorry,
Can you repeat the last sentence?
I'm
You
so
said
sorry.
we
I
lost
think
your connection.
I think the last sentence is when you are sick and you are in travel and doctor says you have to have medicine, and let's say your day is longer, you have to take medicine in any like in each in every 8 hours, but the day is like 12 hours. Doctor says you are not going to live without medicine. You have to have medicine, then you have to have medicine, and then your fast is void, because if doctor says you are sick or you're ill and his decision is about you that you are sick. So if you have two things, if you're a traveler, you cannot fast, and if you're sick, you consider yourself sick or ill, then if only tiredness or fatigue is not the big thing, you can fast and you better fast. But if you are on medicine, then you consider yourself sick, and then you cannot fast.
Jazakumullah, Sheikh. And I think the
You are
important
most
point
welcome.
is that you cannot tough it out, as Sheikh said. If you think that, well, I'm going to suffer the consequences and
Yeah.
put my life at risk, then your fast is not valid anyway. Now, we have a number of centers that have programs coming up, and it's also almost time for the Maghrib prayer. Thank you all for attending. I think that we need to wrap up. If there are any questions that have not been addressed, inshallah, we'll have other opportunities to address them. But thank you, Sheikh Rasul. I know that you have another event coming up. Sheikh Ammar, Sayyid Kashmiri, Sheikh Mahdi, Jazakumullah for sharing your insights at a very busy time of our year. And I hope that inshallah we will very soon have an opportunity to join again and
Thank you.
benefit.
Thank
from
you,
the time.
Sayyid.
Assalamu
Jazakallah.
alaikum, and thank you to all of our
Ramadan
participants.
Mubarak in advance.
Ramadan Mubarak in advance, inshallah.
Yeah, Mubarak inshallah. And thank you very much, Sayyid Suleiman, for inviting us together. It's a very good program. MashaAllah to you and all your efforts. It was a very wonderful program for the community, for the city, and everybody. Inshallah, please remember everybody in the Ramadan prayers, inshallah, especially in Laylatul Qadr.
Jazakumullah, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.